Okay, great. Thank you to everyone who is here today. This is the Manhattan Detention Complex Construction and Demolition Working Group. Today, for those who might be viewing this later, as it's been recorded, it is July 20th, 2026 at 4:30 p.m. This is, as everyone here knows, a meeting that is co-convened by my office. I'm State Senator Brian Kavanagh, as well as the offices of Congressman Dan Goldman, Assemblyman Grace Lee, Borough President Brad Hoylman-Sigal, Councilmember Chris Marte, and Community Ward 1. These meetings, as I mentioned, are recorded and posted both on our Senate website and I believe also via YouTube. It's been a couple months since our last meeting, and our office and the city team have continued working closely with the community in preparation for construction and to address the ongoing issues that people have been experiencing. We're very happy to share the city and thank the city for making this a reality. But Laura Dodge of Excel has been officially contracted as the independent community environmental monitor for this project. Many of us have a lot of experience with her working on other projects, and we're delighted to have her in this role with respect to this project. I think, members of the working group were well into the rhythm of this by now. But just as a reminder, the purpose of these meetings is to focus on issues specifically related to previously the demolition phase and now the construction of the complex. There's obviously many other issues and perspectives on this project out there, but this is a forum we've all agreed is not the place to resolve those. I'll do a quick overview of the agenda. Let me just pause to see if any of the co-convening parties have any preliminary comments or concerns. Okay, so
Senator Kavanagh, before we start, I also want to let you know that we also have DTC Commissioner Paul Ochoa in this call. Commissioner Ochoa.
I'm glad you're doing that. I was actually going to do that. I was saving, that news for the end of my remarks. But yes, welcome, Commissioner. It's great to have you on here personally to join us today. So if there are no...
I think Commissioner Ochoa would say a few words if we could.
Yeah, that would be great. Please. Commissioner.
We can't hear you.
Hi, Commissioner. We can't hear you.
I can't hear anything.
I think we might have lost the commissioner. Oh, no, there he is. Moved up in those standings on my list, at least.
Hi, Commissioner. We still can't hear your audio.
Okay. Can folks hear me okay?
We can hear you now.
Yep.
The city's used to Teams, and the programming was done for Teams. I apologize. I was just saying, thank you, Senator. It's nice to see you all. I'm Paul Ochoa. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Design and Construction. I'm 3 months into the job. I got the pleasure of meeting the electeds last time we had this meeting. So for today, we'll be hearing from our expert consultants and staff. And my commitment is the same commitment that I shared with our wonderful electeds, is to continue being a good partner. I'm so happy that the Senator mentioned our independent monitor being in place. We did that in just under a month. So we're very happy and thankful for the DDC team of working through that procurement. And I think I've said this with the Senator and Assemblymember and Councilmember and every single elected, like closing records is not just a mayoral priority, it's a moral imperative for the city. And we as an agency and as city will continue doing everything we can to minimize any community impacts. And that's what we're here for. We're here to listen, to answer questions, and provide any answers that for any issues that you may raise. So, as you all know, you have an entire team dedicated to this project, and again, open lines of communication, and we'll try to address anything that comes up. So, really, thank you for the time, and I'm here to listen and provide the support that you all deserve and need.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. And thanks to everybody from DDC and the team also. So unless we have any other preliminaries, I think maybe we'll just hear from the team updates about design and construction of the site.
Thank you, Senator Kavanagh. George, I think
Sure.
you can have the floor for now.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody's time today. We'll get right into it. First, we'll start with just the project status, where we are. We'll look at the next 3 months, where we're going with project schedule. We'll talk about the water table and addressing that safely. We'll talk about safety overall, environmental monitoring, and of course, we're going to introduce our independent monitor with Excel. So just starting off with the job site, this is what the project looked like as of last week. Right now, we have 3 large drill rigs installing C-camp piles on the northern end of the project, which is to the left of the screen. To the south is to the right of the screen. And along with that, we're doing some other preliminary exploratory work around the site. Going on to the next page, these are just some examples of the large equipment that we have on site: drill rigs, assist cranes, loaders, and excavators. These are the major pieces of equipment. The most notable deliveries that are getting made are the early deliveries, which are constrained by DOT stipulations for crossing bridges or the weight of these loads, and they consist of core beams, which you can see here. This is a bunch of core beams here. These go inside the C-camp piles. Casings, same situation here. These consist of early deliveries, and of course, concrete deliveries, which the concrete goes inside these C-camp piles. The concrete deliveries are coming throughout the day during our permitted working hours. Looking at the site conditions and the layout, no many changes since the last time we met a couple of months ago, with exception to here, the northeast area, which is south of Chungpak. We are adjusting the entrance gate into the site to accommodate Chungpak's concerns of the traffic and the proximity of the construction to their site. So we're shifting that fence down about 70 feet, 70, 80 feet, and we're in the process of doing that. As a matter of fact, by tomorrow, we should have this gate installed. Other than that, business as usual. We have the courthouse to our south. Their temporary sally port is continuing their operations. We have our Center Street entrance and exit here on these gates, and everything else remains as previously discussed. One major change that's worth noting, other than the Chungpak gate, is that we're replacing these docks, these orange and white docks, to concrete jersey barriers or concrete barriers. You can see here some samples to the bottom of the screen. These are just providing a greater stability and resistance to high winds. As we do have sound blankets on top of these fences, it creates higher pressure and a more tendency to lean over. So we have already replaced the docks along Baxter Street as of this weekend, and next weekend we'll do the docks along Center Street. Looking at the 3 months from now, we're going to continue C-camp pile driving very similarly to as we're doing now, removing some of the remnant foundations that are conflicting with the new C-camp pile and some of the foundation elements of the new building. Excavation, of course, as we are starting to go lower into the elevations. And then some miscellaneous work. We're going to be removing some light poles, one on Center, one on Baxter. That should be in the next couple of weeks. And of course, the courthouse emergency exit, which I'll show you in a little bit more detail coming up. When we talk about early SOE work, this really consists of removing some of these conflicting remnant foundation elements from the old detention facility. You can see here the priority areas are the 4 corners, which we have completed half of it, more or less by now, on the northern end, and we're now moving to the south. C-camp operations. are continuing. You can see here the 3 drill rigs that we mentioned earlier. This is more of a cartoon and time. This will get more detailed as we continue our operations with caissons in the future. So this is just showing you where we are at the current moment. Moving further down, a couple other items. We do have some fire hydrant relocations to complete. We do have these approvals in hand. We're just coordinating right now with our site operations as to when to conduct this work. And as you can see here on Baxter, we'll relocate this hydrant across the street. And on Center, we're going to relocate this hydrant further north, just to help our site logistics and safety for the moving vehicles. This should take about 3 to 4 weeks total. We're going to try to do it quicker. It should be about a week and a half on each side. Same here. This is just addressing the fire hydrant relocations that are going to happen. In addition to that, we did mention some light pole relocations. We also have some traffic light removals and modifications that we're going to make. You can see here the image to the right shows the existing traffic light that will be removed and shifted over here to the left. So we're in the process of working with DOT to getting those approvals. Should happen in the next month or two. And we did mention the light poles. These will be removed in the next couple of weeks, maybe sooner, pending Con Ed coming and removing the power to these light poles. The courthouse egress, of course, the courthouse to our south, we will have to install a new emergency egress just to accommodate the final condition of the courthouse and the Manhattan facility. You can see here the old egress along the northern side of the courthouse and the new area. Let's go a little bit more in detail here. So what we'll do is we're going to take one of the existing windows and install a door there that will look very similar to the other doors on the building architecturally. This was approved by the Landmarks LPC, Landmark Preservation, and of course PDC as well. So that work should be starting in the next week or two. It should take about 3 months to complete. We do have to work night shift for a good portion of this work to coordinate with the operations that are happening in the courthouse. But of course, we'll put up sound blankets for the noise. We're going to have HEPA filter vacuums and other mitigation measures for any dust that's created in this area. Moving forward, safety. This is a very sensitive topic to the construction engineering team and the community, of course. So let's talk about the secant pile wall and what that looks like. It's basically made up of a series of secant piles which are overlapping. Every other pile is basically reinforced with concrete steel, these large steel beams that go in, and that gets filled with concrete. And this creates a rigid boundary that ultimately creates like a bathtub or isolates the footprint of the site from the water table. And what the water table consists of, if you can imagine basically the earth being a sponge, for simpler terms, the water table is really saturating the parts of the ground, and it has a more or less stable elevation. And what we need to do is, in our site, excavate deeper than where the water table is. So what we're going to do is we're going to isolate that with these secant pile walls. You can see here, this graphic shows you how we need to excavate deeper than the saturated zone here. And how we do that is we install these secant walls. These are some examples. Of course, what you see here is after these walls are installed and the excavation has continued further down to expose these walls and enable the team to work inside of this. And you can see some bracing here that's used to secure the walls in place. So that's in essence high level of what that is. Some additional here graphics to help you understand. So if you want to dewater or draw the water table lower without secant wall isolation, what would happen is the water would draw down kind of like a cone. So that would create some settling in the surrounding vicinity. What we're doing here is we're isolating the system, we're maintaining the natural water table to its elevation and drawing down. Of course, the water table will fluctuate naturally. It can fluctuate due to heavy rains. In our case, we have the transit tunnel next to us. Sometimes they pump water out, so they might make the elevation of the groundwater go up a little bit. But we're monitoring. We will be monitoring both from inside and outside of the site. The water levels, you can see here, this is a little bit more detailed graphic where the water table stays pretty much static in this condition, and then we draw down. We have monitoring inside and outside, so that's the concept there. And how do we protect the project and the community? We put the wells, of course, we monitor the ground water levels. We also monitor movement of the adjacent buildings, vibration. So we have a pretty thorough plan in place that, of course, is reviewed and approved by DOB, Transit. When we talk about dewatering, it's DEP, the DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation. So all these plans need to be approved before they're even put in place. So we do have all those approvals, and we're proceeding likewise. So the plan is to start installing these wells at the end of the year to establish a baseline of where the groundwater table is, in addition to previous exploratory work that we've done. And once we establish that, we'll start drawing down the table and excavating. That will be in early 2027. Of course, Manhattan being a majority of it, especially downtown, being built on top of water and the river, there's similar projects. The Gateway Tunnel project has a similar setup, and for Hudson Square project, 111th Avenue in Chelsea, and of course 120th Fifth Avenue. So these are just some examples that have similar secant pile wall systems. Talking about safety, we take safety very seriously on our jobs, and it's really up to not just the superintendents, the project managers, engineers, it's anybody that steps on site from our company and our visitors. We orientate these folks when they come on site. They get some training, and it's everybody's responsibility to really observe and raise the flag if they see any unsafe conditions. As a matter of fact, just to confirm some follow-ups from previous meetings, there have been some isolated incidents that were referenced in the last meeting in terms of Brooklyn, but just really want to emphasize how serious we are about safety. Our New York, Tudor Perini's New York independently verified EMR record is 0.37. Nationally, it's 0.65. We're looking at about a 1.0 average, so we are well below the national average here. And this is a rating that's verified independently, and what insurance process goes through to set that up. So just wanted to highlight that. Our environmental monitoring. This is really our map of monitoring stations. We have vibration in the triangles. You can see it's about 90 feet around the job site. And in addition to the 90 feet, we're also monitoring the firehouse. You can see down here, west of the site. We have the monitoring wells in purple, as we mentioned earlier, outside the site that are shown here. And of course, dust and noise monitors all around that are monitoring 24/7. In terms of the monthly environmental report, TPONG issues this to DDC on a monthly basis, and that gets released, of course, to the public, which is on the DDC's website. Just some recap for June for our report. For noise monitoring, we had 186 instances of noise exceedances. Out of all those, 138 were recorded outside of working hours. So there are noise levels that exceed the 85 decibel per day and 75 per night outside of construction. For the remainder, a lot of these were happening during rush hour between 3 and 5 p.m. So it was determined that a lot of this was coming from either increased emergency vehicles or just higher level of traffic. And you can see that detail in our report. For dust monitoring, there were no exceedances for the month of June. And for vibration monitoring, we had just one exceedance at the courthouse to our south. And that was just an anomaly. We double checked against the other 3 vibration monitors in the building, and we didn't have any issues. So that was an anomaly that we picked up there. And I'd like to take some time to introduce Excel, our independent monitor. Please feel free to jump in.
Hey, Laura. You please feel welcome to start your introduction of your team. Maybe share the scope of your work, especially compared to the scope of Excel team during dismantle, and just share with the community what your plan are.
Sure, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and nice to see the ones that I've been working with before on the dismantling phase of work towards the end of that phase of work. So we're happy to be on board. We did have our in-person kickoff meeting last Wednesday, and we are now on site as of Thursday morning. We have a project scientist on site during the entire time of the work going on. So right now the schedule is 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we are monitoring with handheld instruments for particulate matter, including PM10 and PM2.5, taking separate readings, as well as total volatile organics, as well as noise. So we have the instruments for all 4 of those parameters, although the PM2.5 and PM10 has to switch off and on because it's the same instrument, but just different attachments. So we have to, go into the trailer, switch it off, go back out. But we're getting all of that data on on a real-time basis, and that we're going around the entire perimeter of the site like we did before, visiting each of the air quality systems, the community air monitoring systems, and then also doing midpoint checks on Baxter and Center Street. And then we're also taking some readings interior to the site so that we can look at the dissipation of noise, from the site to the exterior, and also that helps us assess the effectiveness of the noise blankets and other noise mitigation measures. We're observing the work each day since we've been on site, and that will continue. So we're able to document that the best management practices are in use for keeping the dust levels down by wetting, either using hoses or sprinklers or a water truck, or the combination of all 3. We also know that there was application of soil glue in certain areas that don't have heavy equipment traffic. But in those areas that do have heavy equipment traffic, the site has been kept very wet. And actually, we've been documenting that daily. We're also documenting the washing down of truck tires, the tarping of the trucks that are coming off the site, and the condition of the tracking pad at the gate entrance to make sure that it's being maintained and crushed concrete or soil isn't being tracked off site. So we have space that was provided to us in one of the on-site trailers, so that our project scientists can complete their daily reports, which we're doing electronically. Those then just come back to me and my team. Eric Mertz, who's on the call today, is our project manager, senior project manager. I'm basically the overall client-facing and public-facing representative. Have a team that will rotate out of, probably 4 to 6 different project scientists over the course of time, depending upon, their schedules and things like that. But we have a dedicated group that right now is doing a split shift, because it is 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and they still have reporting to do. So they're kind of passing off at 2 p.m. To the second scientist, and then one daily report is generated. We'll be issuing weekly reports, which will be a combination of our daily findings and then also monthly reports as well. And so we just got started. Last Thursday was our first day in the field. We just issued the reports for Friday, Saturday. Oh, and we also were on site Saturday because we're doing limited Saturdays depending upon, whether the team is working or not. This past Saturday, we were there during about 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And this coming Saturday, we're also going to be on site if the schedule is still going to be for work on site. And then we're also going to participate in meetings like this and also with the CB1 meetings that we're invited to, whether it be the environmental protection meeting or the community meeting. So
Thank you, Laura. Can you elaborate? I also read the questions on the chat. Some of this you already responded, but there's a question if the community monitor will have the authority to stop work. Can you share how your team is working with TPOG's site team? I know that your team is working very closely with our team to flag if there's any issues.
Right. Yeah, so we were on site Thursday, and as everybody knows, there was a very, unusual situation as far as, the routine work is concerned on Thursday because of the ambient air quality from the Canadian wildfires, and the combination of that plus the heat plus humidity. So one of the things that I think we're seeing is that some of the particulate meter real-time handheld instruments are being affected by elevated humidity, and we're looking into that and to see how we can sort of parse through that. Because when we started on Thursday of last week, in the morning, getting started, we had over 100% humidity, and it was also very warm, and then we had, visible smoke from the wildfires. But there was absolutely no indication of any on-site contribution to the readings that we were recording for PM10 or PM2.5. Our on-site scientist was, there during the entire day. The site was kept extremely wet, not just moist, but wet. And all of the best management practices were in place. So we're very confident to say that there was no elevated situation emanating from the site with respect to particulate matter or dust. It was really that we were picking up, ambient air quality issues. Now, my understanding from, the construction team is that, the conditions on site were suitable for continuing to work. Work did slow down as the day went on, and ultimately they did shut down a little earlier than they normally would. It was before 6 o'clock. I think it was closer to 5:40, 5:45, when things were wrapped up, and they were progressively kind of winding down. Friday, the levels were completely normal. The dust had dissipated largely. The ambient air quality had improved significantly. And so we are seeing that in our data. Things were right back to what we would expect to see. The ambient air quality data and the site readings were, well below alert levels for the project and well below action levels. Saturday, we saw a recurrence of the wildfire smoke. Ambient air quality was also affected. We had a very high humidity again, upwards of, 70, 80%. And elevated readings from the morning that progressively dropped over the day as the ambient air quality started to improve. Today, it's been fine, no indication of any atmospheric issues, no smoke, recorded, whether visible or on the instruments or odor. And all the readings are well below action levels and alert levels with very little particulate matter reported on site and also around the perimeter. So we would be, and we have been interacting with Tuta Perini's on-site supervisor and also with their health and safety manager, sharing data, talking about the things that are happening, giving our feedback, which right now has not been any more than just to say, the best management practices have been consistently in use. We have, we've only been out there, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and today, but we have not observed anything that we would, comment on in terms of any kind of a change in procedures because everything is being adhered to per the approved plans. So we would not be telling them to shut down. We would be speaking directly to the on-site supervisor and then, if necessary, to the AECOM Hill joint venture engineering team about something that we might be concerned about if anything does occur.
Thank you, Laura. And there's a second question about the monitoring record from last weekend. As usual, TPOG will release their monthly environmental report on their on our BPJ website, but we also have Excel team producing public-facing weekly and monthly reports, and both reports will also be available from our website. So moving forward, you'll be able to access Excel's report. Do you want to add to that, Laura?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everybody understands, because we've talked about this before, even during the dismantling phase of work. The handheld readings are instantaneous. They're not averages. And all of the action levels, the alert level, which is the first screening level for particle matter 10 or PM10, is based on a 15-minute time-weighted average. The camp units automatically calculate, they give an instantaneous reading, but then they calculate the 15-minute time-weighted average. That's what's compared to the alert level of 100 micrograms per cubic meter for particle matter 10, and then the action level where work should shut down at 150 micrograms per cubic meter. So if either of those values are reached in one of the camp units, then we would then communicate that to the on-site site supervisor. He would already have received the alerts because the alerts are automatically sent out to everyone's email, and they get them on their phones. And so we get them, the on-site folks get them. They'll know already, and they'll know that at the alert level, they need to look at best management practices, look at what's going on site, try to adjust things to reduce the generation of dust or noise. And then once the action level hits, they have to stop work. We haven't experienced that yet related to on-site contributions. And remember, our readings are qualitatively being compared to the numerical values, but they're instantaneous, they're not averages. So that's a really important distinction that everyone needs to make. And the reason why it's important to have those real-time measurements is so that we can get ahead of any kind of situation where the time-weighted average is approaching or going to exceed the action level. It's sort of like an early warning system, if you will. But you have to also take the data with, the understanding that these are not averages. And the same goes for noise. We're seeing instantaneous noise levels, which would be equivalent to like that loudest sound. But the standards are, in addition to a bang sound, that is part of the action level, but the average sound levels are also what's being monitored for. So if we hear or record loud sounds, then, on-site or off-site, then we would then communicate that back to the on-site team and start to look at what can be done to prevent there being an action level exceedance. So this is all very proactive to try to prevent those alerts and prevent the action levels if it can be done, if that's something that the data can help us do. But it's really important to distinguish between the two. And our daily reports do that. It records the data, but it also very carefully says these are real-time measurements, not averages. The air quality system, the CAM system, is giving you the averages. So we'll be speaking to that in our weekly reports and our monthly reports to clarify that, for the public. I just want to make sure that was really clear because it is a really big, important distinction.
Thank you so much, Laura. And before we jump to other questions from the community member, I just want to highlight what's the information on the slide here. So Excel will have one designated community contact that can correspond directly with Laura. It's going to be Zach Bomer, the district manager from Manhattan Community Board 1. But apart from having Zach coordinate or communicate with Excel directly, we always welcome any questions, any concerns from the community. If you have questions for Excel, if you have questions for our project team, please send it over to Shu Chao. The email is on the screen. He'll be available to direct your question to the independent monitor, and we can share the independent monitor response to the community members.
Thank you. Thank you, Katerina and Laura and everybody from the team and the commissioner. So we have about 20 minutes remaining in our schedule time here. Let me just say first, I misspoke earlier because I see Laura Dodge in so many different contexts, but obviously Laura, as she noted, was in the earlier phase of this project. And I also do want to emphasize the appreciation we have the city, both City Hall and DDC, upon being made aware of in the new administration of the community's interest in having somebody who's independent to do this work. Was jumped right on figuring out how to fund that and getting a contract out there. And it is sort of lightning speed, the procurement process that happened here. And it's a pretty broad scope of contract. So our hope is that Laura will have the resources necessary to do the work to reassure the community when that's the appropriate thing, and to call to raise questions when questions need to be raised. So with that, just if you want to maybe anyone with questions want to raise hands now, and we'll take them as they come in. Tammy?
Hi. Thanks, Brian. I just put a note and I wanted to make sure the DDC team saw it. It's very much that we did not designated Zach as our main point of contact for the office. We will get you the names of who will be the main point of contact for this section of it, but we cannot just limit it to Zach. That's not actually tenable. We have at least 3 other projects that are very intensive at the moment. So you'll bear with Community Board 1 as we get you who the right framework will be. Just that.
And we'll get that information out to the group, when as soon as the Community Board has it.
That's fine. That works for us. No problem.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
And Jen,
Tammy.
sorry, go ahead, Tammy.
And I'm going to wait until the very end if anything's been left on the table that I needed. There you go. Let the community go
That
first.
and cleanup. Okay, good. Jan, if I may, I'm going to just use some discretion here to let Grace Lee, one of our co-conveners, go next. Grace.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Grace.
Here you go.
You can't. Can you hear me now? Is that
Kind
yes,
of
it's
a little faint,
quiet,
but yes.
Okay, let me just take. Sorry, let me just. Why don't I just get rid of this? Okay, I'm gonna just talk really loud. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So I've been in conversation with Deputy Mayor Curson about some questions from the community about the dewatering process. And I sent along a list of questions. I don't know if they were all addressed in the presentation. And so I wanted to hear from the city about those specific questions. If you had a chance to review those, and what else, and just get a better sense. I mean, there was an op-ed that was published recently about concerns from the community about the dewatering process, and wanted to hear your response to that.
Thank you, Assemblymember. George, maybe you can share more about your dewatering and how TPOG will conduct the work safely. And then also after George, we also have Langan, who did the geotechnical report, here to address follow-up questions if you have more.
course. I think I'm going to let the expert speak here. I know I'm going to introduce Tassos Papathanassiou from Langen, which is our engineer of record. Tassos, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Do you want to give us a brief high-level overview of the dewatering and potentially answer some of these questions if you're aware?
I think you did a really good job describing it, but if there are specific questions, I'll be happy to address any specific questions if someone can put something on the screen. Okay, the chat. Why the permit deflection, the perimeter 8 times more? That's what allowed by historic buildings. The site surrounded by vulnerable, actually legal. Okay. It's not only legal, it's also technically founded and correct and checked. The SOE support of excavation, as we call it, which is a secant pile wall, is a very stiff system, and its stiffness does not, the deflection of 1.5 inches actually is not 8 times more. It's not 2 inches as the article said. The limit is 1.5 inches. Does not immediately translate in movements in the neighborhood. If you have local deflections of the support of excavation, and it's not going to be 1.5 inches everywhere, it could be like at different stages on a single location, the maximum. It doesn't mean that the tenements that are 50 feet away are going to experience the same amount of distress and movements. We are very aware, and we have, in our design, we have checked and analyzed the deflections of the support of excavation, and we still maintain that the tenements and the historic buildings will not exceed the very strict criteria allowed by the city and the landmarks criteria, which is 1/4 inch. So that's why these buildings are still monitored with the 1/4 inch criteria as the maximum, regardless if the secant pile wall is deflecting by a multitude of that. It's not a permanent structure. It functions differently. And because it deflects that much, that doesn't mean that this deflection will translate to equal movements.
And Assemblymember, I think it's also worth taking a step back and talking about what the geotechnical report is and what isn't. The geotechnical report is supposed to guide the design, which is exactly what we're doing here. But maybe, Eduardo, you can talk a little bit about how the technical report essentially guides the process, and it's not, it's essentially like it's a roadmap to how to address the conditions that are found in the geotechnical report.
Right. So the geotechnical report, which was prepared by Langen, by the way, is basically meant to inform the design and to provide the information required by the Langen engineering team to design the SOE and the secant pile walls. So the report obviously was an engineering report. It was objective. It identified some of the potential challenges that needed to be addressed by this design. The answer to the findings in that report is a design that we have at hand right now, which addresses, from a pure engineering standpoint, all of the engineering concerns that were raised in that report. So, Tassos, if I missed anything, feel free to fill in. I just, from a high level, the engineering is basically guided by the geotech report that was prepared by your office as well.
Absolutely correct. It identifies risks and produces engineering parameters in order to guide the design. The report by itself is not a design document.
Right, exactly.
And I would also say it is a requirement for this type of buildings to have a geotechnical report.
Of this extent, Commissioner, every per code, all buildings in New York City in order to be filed and approved, need to go through a process of their technical investigations and report preparation. With this project being of this profile, as the article said, we prepared a report that had some 500 pages, and this was to respond to identifying exactly what the design should consider.
Right, just a clarifying question. So, who determines that the design and the sort of setup here actually addresses those concerns? Is that a Langen? Langen did the initial survey and the geotechnical report. Do you then are you then responsible for ensuring that the setup is going to be adequate to address those concerns?
So the short answer there is that professional engineers are licensed to protect and safeguard the life and safety of building occupants and everyone around the site. They have an obligation as much as a doctor does with regards to due diligence and being they're licensed professionals. But above and beyond that, obviously, the report and the design are also reviewed by DOB. And DOB went through a pretty, I would say, more thorough review process on this project, and I would say the other three as well, not just Manhattan, but all four projects. DOB has taken it to a level that I've never seen with regards to their due diligence and reviewing not only the Langen report and the work product done for Manhattan, but for the other sites as well.
And Eduardo, if I also may add that also New York City Transit reviewed our report. New York City Transit has a 100, give or take, old tunnel next to us. The tenements are within a distance of 50 feet, but the closest structure right now to what we do at the center corner is the New York City Transit structure, a very sensitive structure. And New York City Transit spent considerable amount of time discussing with us, having questions, making comments, and finally approving our design.
Yeah, just to add to the DOB review, they had the peer review, of course, the independent peer review, which went through and gave their sign off before DEP concluded their review and approval.
Which again is also a code requirement, and we comply fully with that requirement.
Which I think that segues. I see another question number 2 about the dewatering plan being reviewed and approved by DEP. Certainly, of course, the DEP has reviewed and approved our dewatering plan along with Department of Environmental Conservation. They have thoroughly reviewed all the details in terms of the volumes of water that are being discharged and how that water is being handled. So that is all laid out in detail in the dewatering plan and the approval by those entities.
And then there's also a question about the pre-construction survey. George, maybe you can speak on the status of that, and then if you will report the monitoring well data on our monthly reports.
So I'm just reading here the pre-construction condition survey of each building. So the pre-construction surveys have been completed. If any owner would like to see them, please feel free to reach out and we'll go through the appropriate channels, the DDC. I don't see any issue with that. So please reach out and request that information. Same with the properties. We've done the same with the tunnel. We've surveyed the tunnel and we continue to monitor these 24/7, as well as doing manual crack gauge measurements daily, just to stay well ahead of any potential movement or changes that may happen. What else?
So Grace, are you good?
Well, now that Laura Dodge has been brought on to the project, will she also, will Laura be able to review the design and the plans for the dewatering?
She's not an expert.
Yeah, that's not in our area of expertise, Grace. Assemblymember Grace Lee. Good to see you again, by the way. But yeah, we would not get involved in something like that. I should say though that although it's not specifically in our work scope to comment on the vibration monitoring, we do have access, like we did during the dismantling phase of work, to the vibration data that's generated by the monitoring system. That those graphs are provided with the link that we have to the real-time measurements. So if we were, and we'll be, I failed to say earlier that in addition to have someone on site during all of the work that's in progress in the field, we also have access to that system in the office, and we'll be periodically checking it during the day to be able to communicate with our person on site and make sure that there's that active communication. But we're not going to be involved in the design review.
Okay, thank you for that. And then there was another question, number 3. Before the dewatering begins, will the city commit to a written protection plan for the surrounding tenements and the landmark firehouse? Can you respond to that?
So the protection plan is part of the landmarks submission that we made, which is the, forget the exact acronym, but there is a construction protection plan that was submitted and approved by LPC. So we have that information.
Great. I'll let the community answer, ask more questions from here.
Thank you, Grace. Jan Lee, thank you for your patience, and you're up.
I just wanted to thank everyone involved in putting these meetings together, Senator and all our electeds. You know, this is a rare opportunity to have everyone together. So thank you to all who came. What we're experiencing on the ground seems to be a contradiction from a lot of what I've heard. For instance, you know, I deeply respect Laura and the work that she's done for us, but on the ground, we were choking on every breath near that site. And, you know, our purple air monitors that we look at had a different reading farther away. So it's hard to blame this on humidity. You know, from our point of view, I'm just speaking as a resident on the ground. There's also a contradiction about the Yodoc barriers being safe. You know, we were told that the ones in the Manhattan site were pinned to the ground and filled with ballast, and now we see that they're changed to concrete, which seems like a contradiction, that one over the other was less safe. So, you know, and as much as Mr. Deval says that, you know, there's such licensed professionals, we have had a death at the Brooklyn site. There's been injuries on the Manhattan site. The Brooklyn site has 5 stop work orders. So yeah, what we're experiencing is actually something very different. And the last thing that I want to say is that when the mayor of New York tells everyone, including workers, that they really should be indoors and not go outside because the exceedances for the average New York person is so bad that the city is shutting down playgrounds and outdoor activities. But we're told in our site that the science is proving everything that the city hall said was wrong and that it's fine to do what you're doing. I just want to point that out, that we're left with these contradictions after hearing all of this last hour, plus what we're saying, and then try to find guidelines from the mayor's office, which are telling our social service providers, telling our children to go inside. So at what point are we going to continue down this road where the mayor says, this is not safe for you, and you say, this is safe? So I'd like some clarity on that. And again, thank you, Senator.
Jan, I can just give you a quick answer on that. So in terms of our construction workers and their health, we advise them that if they don't feel comfortable, they do not have to report to work. So it's a decision that it's up to them. There was no mandate for no working during this event. Certainly, we experienced during COVID the mandates for only essential work to be going on. I'm pretty sure, knock on wood, hopefully we don't get to that point again, but this project would be considered essential work. So I just want to be mindful of that. But we do give the the option to our workers not to work. It's their decision. Unless there's a law or a mandate for them not to work, we just follow what's required by law.
Can anyone from the city talk about, I mean, there were quite strong statements that came out from the city, just generally for the public and for all of us. You know, I personally was coughing a little bit in some meetings, even though they were not outdoors. So, you know, this one like accumulated, and I did not take the day off, but just a sense of like, I guess, is there any, you know, this is an event that occurred across, you know, large swaths of the United States, certainly affected all of New York City. Just, is there any sense of how the construction industry on large scale projects responded to that? Were there projects that
No.
determined that it was wise to shut down?
I was just going to say the same, and I can pass it over to Eduardo, but the private construction companies are guided by OSHA. The thresholds for the air quality did not cross those OSHA requirements. For our city staff, we did, as was mentioned, we offered masks, and we offered for anyone with a sensitive group, so the categories of like asthma, there's a whole list of categories. If they did not feel comfortable reporting at site, they could do work in the office. And so the thresholds are a little different, Senator. For private construction, they usually follow the OSHA guidelines. The city workforce, obviously, we follow the directive from City Hall. And as was also mentioned, the work did slow down significantly during that time.
Yeah, and I was in touch personally with other with my colleagues in the private sector who also work under PLAs and project labor agreements, and they gave workers the options to go home if they wanted to, but no one stopped work anywhere in the city that I'm aware of. And I contacted several of my colleagues participating in large projects, and yeah, everyone kept working. Again, with the option to stop for anyone who wanted to go home, they could do so.
Senator, I'm sorry. I think that there's a misunderstanding here. I wasn't addressing the health of the workers. The DDC issues bulletins, of which we are aware in advance of what's going to happen, which we appreciate. And for the days leading up to this event, this wildfire event, it was predictable that dust would be produced on every single bulletin. And indeed, dust was produced on those days when the wildfires were happening. So I just want to be very clear that moving forward, no matter what other event is happening, and no matter the fact that we have bulletins that say that dust is going to be produced, dust is going to continue to be produced, exacerbating an existing condition, no matter what other event is happening. So it's full steam ahead, damn the torpedoes. That seems to be what I'm gleaning from this. We try to, listen to the health reports that are coming out. We have very vulnerable members of our community in very close proximity to this site. We know in advance that dust is going to be produced, and so we tell people that. But as far as what we're hearing now, it doesn't matter what the news is telling us. It doesn't matter what's happening from the mayor's office. This will continue unfettered no matter what, and including the particulate matter measurements that seem to be contradictory to what we actually experience. So it's less of a question and more of what we're understanding from everything we've heard today.
If I could speak to that, Jen, because I just wanted to first clarify my comment about humidity. So there's a lot of different points of information that's been generated over the last few days that we've been involved. So you've got the National Ambient Air Quality Index that is being reported out. That's a 24-hour time-weighted average value, which is not based solely on particulate matter. It also takes into account other things that are in the atmosphere as a result of wildfires and vehicle exhaust and other things. So there's carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, other things that are factored into that. And it'll actually break down for you what the PM 2.5 and PM 10 contribution is. And then you have the purple monitors, which are, on Baxter Street, and there's other locations in the city. And then you have the on-site data from Tutor Perini's site supervisor who's taking real-time measurements in addition to Excel. We are talking with them and we're sharing information and we're going to be working on getting everything normalized. We just got started, so there's a few things to work out. But the situation on last Thursday was, I think, just, please forgive my pun, a perfect storm. Because not only did you have this unprecedented amount of wildfire smoke coming right at the city from not just Canada, but also from Minnesota, because there were fires in Minnesota as well. So that was coming right across the Great Lakes, right at it. Like New York City was like a target, right? So you had that, and then you had the extreme heat, and then you had the humidity. And this site being oriented the way it is, you've got the streets to the east and the west, but you've got the buildings around it. So I think that measurements at the site are being skewed to some extent by all of those variables for the July 16th, that Thursday last week. Because after that, everything sort of changed again on Friday, and it was completely normal. And so what I'm saying is that humidity is a variable in the readings we're getting. It's not that it's, skewing your data. It's something that we have to look at, number one. And then number two, we're comparing these real-time measurements with the averages, and the averages are what the health risk is based on, right? It's how much you can be breathing in over a 24-hour period. The action levels are based on 15-minute time-weighted averages so that you never get above the 24-hour. So because we had all these things kind of at play, we were really looking closely on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for any site-related contribution, anything that was being contributed by the activities at the site. And if you look at what happened on Saturday, for instance, with very severe rains that hit, the site was essentially underwater. So there was really no dust being contributed to the readings we were seeing. The readings we were seeing outside were about the same as we were seeing inside. It was time. Over time, on Thursday they started to go up over time because the smoke was getting worse. And on Friday they were clear. And then on Saturday they started out high and they got better as the day went on. And so it's like these trends that are occurring because of all of these variables. So we're not trying to diminish, the importance of what you're experiencing, at the site in real time, but we're trying to make sure that what's going on site is not adding to that. And I can confidently say to you now that we are boots on the ground, every hour that work is going on. So we're there 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then Saturday during the day if work is happening. If the shifts change, we'll be there for the nighttime shift if there is a nighttime shift or when there's a nighttime shift. So we're seeing now in person, real time, on site, either boots on site or through or in the trailer, seeing exactly what's going on. So that is a really big difference compared to before when we were only on site once every 2 weeks. And we had to rely upon what was being reported to us in terms of the data that was being generated in terms of the activities during the day and what was causing, noise exceedances or dust exceedances. We don't have to rely upon anybody else now. And then we're also getting the air quality data, the real-time 24/7 telemetry data, which is 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And those alerts are coming to us, myself included, and Eric, my senior PM, and our on-site project scientists, and our support staff in the office. So we'll be able to go onto the system from anywhere, log in and see exactly what's going on. Real-time, 15-minute time-weighted average, and then we can go from there. But remember, the 15-minute time-weighted average is based on 15 minutes as a conservative protection that you don't go over the 24-hour. Because the air quality index and all those values that are being floated around are based on a 24-hour time-weighted average. So we're really trying to understand it and make sure that the work is not contributing beyond what's allowed by the approved plans. And we commit to continuing to do that. So I know that was a lot.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so
Laura.
much.
Thank you, Jan. All right, so I would just know we are about 10 minutes over our scheduled time, though obviously, we appreciate the dialogue here. If there are any sort of final questions or thoughts before we adjourn, and we will be obviously scheduling our next meeting in the near future. Okay, I see no further hands. So again, thank you to everyone for a great dialogue. Thank you, Katharina, for
Thank you, Senator
managing this
Kavanagh.
presentation. And with that, if we'll
Okay.
adjourn. And again, we'll get a note out to the next about the next scheduled meeting.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Nice to
all.
see you again.
Thank
Okay,
you very much.
bye-bye.
Thanks.